my first summit, what used to be called the EPI International Exit Planning Conference, right? Okay. So I want to take you back to 14, though, because that's the most impact moment for me. I knew not a damn thing about running events, right? And I could tell you I think my experience was a little different than yours, because as I kind of won this thing in 2014 in Fort Worth, Texas, I realized I hadn't filled our room block. I always remember we laughed quite a bit about it, me and my dad today. It wasn't a laughing matter back in 2014. But I ended up losing our business $44,000 that year because I didn't fill all the rooms, and I just owed the hotel $44,000. What a shame. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider, on another Flip the Script episode. So we have one of my favorite people in the world here with me. She's been a big part of my life and a big part of my family's life for a long time at EPI. Can't wait to tell your story. I want to welcome Jocelyn to our show today, who today is our operations manager. But for many of our certified exit planning advisors watching or listening to the show today, you likely know Jocelyn from our Exit Planning Summit. Our Exit Planning Summit became the largest exit planning-centric event in the world today for our profession back in 2022, and she has been leading that effort ever since. So if you haven't seen her there, you likely know her as the people, culture, and process person here at EPI. So one of the unsung heroes that make us all look good and do better and come together. So welcome to the Flip the Script show.
Thanks.
Folks, she's a little nervous, so we'll just put that on the table right now. So, but it's going to be good. So,
I guess so. We'll see how it goes.
See?
I always think back to Chase's when he talks about hating the sound of his own voice and how he started that off as his.
So you're not going to listen to the episode.
I will not be watching or listening.
We'll make sure to send it to your family and friends.
I like to be behind the camera, paging them out.
Well, yeah, so. I would say, like I said, you're kind of the unsung hero, right? It's like one of the cool things, but I think very difficult for an operations team at any business, is that they make you kind of run and flow, and then you guys don't necessarily get all the credit that you guys deserve. So, yeah, I would assume for somebody that's kind of behind the scenes now to be in front of the camera and the mic, and hopefully thousands of SEPAs and people listening, this is a little awkward. So, but let's have fun with it. For people that have been watching the show or listening to the show this year, we've done these Flip the Script with some very impactful people in my life to have them come in and just shoot around questions and have a discussion around stuff they find interesting about what's going on in life and business. So, Jocelyn, take it away. Your show.
Yeah.
You're up.
I want to actually want to start by talking with you about the summit. I think that it was one of the first major projects that I worked on here, and it was one of the first kind of major projects that you and I worked on together. And when we came back in 2022, to your point, I feel like I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'll figure it out with you along the way. Yeah. I helped a little in 2019, which would have been the last one that we had, but I was doing some random administrative task name tags and logistic emails.
Those little Orby balls.
Yeah, the little Orby balls.
That are in all the vases.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was doing smaller stuff like that and didn't really have a big idea of the summit, kind of overall scope of it. But I want to talk about the summit because it's, I think, something that you and I have been able to grow in work-wise, and we're both very passionate about. But I want to hear about what you remember your first summit experience being like, because you were in a similar role to me where it kind of got thrown at you and you were kind of planning and learning along the way.
That is such a good point. Really, so definitely what I love about these Flip the Scripts is that they always kind of take me down memory lane. So let me comment on the first thing, and then we'll go back to what my first summit experience is like. So very true. So it's 2019 for all of our listeners who don't necessarily follow EPI deeply. I thought, in being an operations and systems and process person, I thought we were really set up in 2019 to host a good 200-person conference, which was what we had and what we were planning to have in 2020 before our pandemic hit. And so we come back. Now, we've certified more people over those 2 years than we ever have. Decided we couldn't do it, obviously, prohibited to do it in 2020. We decided, look, let's not go there in 2021, but in 2022, things had opened up. And
Yep.
we said, let's bring back the summit. People were super interested in getting back together. And as now our operations manager, and as somebody that sit back now in 2022, somebody that sits on our executive leadership team, we said, look, we want to put these in-person programs under our operations and fulfillment side, if you will. And we gave you the opportunity and responsibility to run the show.
Yep.
And I think what we both learned in that moment is that we were pretty set up for a 200-person conference.
Yeah.
Not set up for a 500-person conference.
Which is not what we were expecting.
It was not what we were expecting. It was like a lovely surprise, right, that people wanted to come out in that type of number, and it's grown ever since. I always think about this when I sit in your office. There's a Crystal Award that I got you to show our appreciation for being such an entrepreneur and having such the courage, frankly, to kind of step up and step in on running not only like our company's and industry's most important event, but my personal most, which had to put another weight on your shoulder. And I laugh now because each year we set a new record for attendance. So I think I owe you like 4 crystals by now or 3 crystals by now, and they'll just keep growing. You'll have a whole chest full. But I mentioned the kind of impact, if you will, because I think it really kind of works into my answer. Because whether you know it or not, I probably felt very similar to what you were feeling in 2022. And then after that, probably similar to what you feel every time we host a summit, where we're like, this thing's growing and growing and growing, and every year it's different and more evolved and frankly more complex. So my first summit, right? So my first summit, what used to be called the EPI International Exit Planning Conference, right? Okay. So I want to take you back to 2014 though, because that's the most impact moment for me. We had moved the business to our conference used to be in September for those in our audience that don't know. And in July, we moved the business to Cleveland, and that's when I took over as the official vice president of the company. Now, we had an executive director, and we ended up having to let him go because we moved the business from Chicago to Cleveland, unwilling to move, and I took over to kind of execute this strategy. So maybe kind of like you, when I asked you in 2022 to take over this thing, I knew not a damn thing about running events, right? And I could tell you I think my experience was a little different than yours, because as I kind of wung this thing in 2014 in Fort Worth, Texas, I realized I hadn't filled our room block. So if anybody understands the hotel business, you buy, right, a certain set of rooms, and you guarantee a certain set of rooms, and whatever you don't fill, you owe. And I always remember we laughed quite a bit about it, me and my dad today. It wasn't a laughing matter back in 2014. But I ended up losing our business $44,000 that year because I didn't fill all the rooms, and I just owed the hotel $44,000. What a shame. I didn't even know that I should be looking at those type of things. But yeah, I would say, and from there, you just kind of learn and grow. Mm-hmm. And maybe like you a little bit, you kind of, you have that entrepreneurial spirit. So you're just kind of learning and growing, adapting, reading, exposing yourself to different mentors along the way. And eventually I was able to get that to 2019, where I said, cool, Jocelyn, now you can take this beast that is now almost a 1,000-person conference coming up in 2025. So it's
fair. I think
I
at least had the help, though, obviously, of you and Paige and some other people here who had seen the event previously. Yeah. So I maybe wasn't as thrown in the dark as you were, but still quite an unfamiliar territory for me.
Yeah, and I would just say for you, it had to be like the conference I managed was like 80 people, right? It was like a chapter meeting today. And so
That's fair.
I couldn't imagine being you. And what I think is cool, I was a little older than you, I guess, when I inherited the management of the summit, but similar age. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess to your point, I couldn't imagine, though. Yes, you had tools and systems and people. I couldn't imagine inheriting a 500-person event that was actually kind of unexpected. Like, we hit 200, like, okay, good. Yeah. We hit 300, we're like, okay. We hit 400, we're like, oh no. Oh, no. And you hit 500, we're like, all right, Jocelyn, still good? You're like, kind of. It was a great one, but it was honestly one of the most, I think still today, one of the most successful events in terms of experience that we've ever had. So it's a major accomplishment.
Definitely,
in your career.
Quite,
sure.
I'm definitely proud, and I'm glad that I've been able to stick with it here over the last couple of years. It's one of the things that I look forward to most in kind of like my week and seeing it come to fruition at the end. So. But I want to talk to the growth of the summit. Going going back to where you started and where we came back to in 2022 and where we're moving forward. So we had 2024 this year, and hitting bigger numbers, as you keep mentioning. It kind of keeps being that joke of growing and growing. But in all seriousness, I think we're hitting a point of, a change to the vibe a little bit of what we've typically been going for.
Totally.
And we're not going to be able to be in a full resort takeover anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to start hitting that 1,000 number, be more in a convention center, multiple hotel room block kind of thing. So where, as the visionary of the summit, where do you see the summit growing?
Yeah.
And because that's becoming so large, are there any maybe other in-person events you can share with the community that's kind of in the pipeline for us?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with it. This is another great question. So I think we are in like a pivotal evolution type year in this year in 2024. It is probably the last style of summit in that form that you'll see, because to your point, it's just harder to do some of the elements of the summit that we're both passionate about with 1,000 people or 1,500. And I think that whether it was they laughed about me getting my water mug, I don't know if anybody ever notices who watches on our LinkedIn page or somewhere else, that I always have my trusted Cleveland mug here. Yep. But since we're talking about conferences, this was the 2013 conference, which was the second ever conference that we had in our history, but we decided to have it in Cleveland because that's when we bought the business. But anyways, this conference only had about 80 people at it as well, and now we're talking about 1,000. So I would say even from 2013 all the way up to 2024, this year, you've had a similar feel, though we've rebranded from conference to the summit. You've had a similar feel of very interactive, case study based, and be able to hopefully dive into some deeper relationships. Mm-hmm. And when you get, as I was saying, as you get to that 1,000 or 1,500 person mark, you're a much more traditional conference in form. So I always think that you and I and our team will have these unique elements that are the EPI touch to the conferences. But I think as you look into 25, 26, 27, and beyond, the summit, and I think this is why we named it the Exit Planning Summit, because it is the event for anybody interested in exit planning and having a better and deeper relationship with an owner. So it is truly, as I mentioned at the top of the show, has become the event in our industry for our profession and for all things exit planning. And we're going to let that grow. We decided you and I, and then as an executive team, decided to let that grow. So future of the summit in its form that you see it today pivots a little bit to a little bit more breakout sessions, a little bit more networking, and just a really broad stroke of really great education, great people, and great partners that allow you to power the firm or power your firm or your services. But what we're passionate about, I think, and not to dish more event management over to you, but I think the future then becomes as you take that deep dive relationship building and you take that deep dive case study work and you roll it into a smaller, more intimate setting with 100 or 150 people that really want that. Yeah. So they come together for 2 intensive days where they focus on building an exit planning team and embracing the value acceleration methodology in all of its parts, where you're case study based, you're working to kind of a mastery level type SEPA, and we will likely have these kind of twice a year or quarterly, and you will see the first one of these debut in late 2025. So something that is in our product development team now, that'll get over to the operations team for the physical planning, likely by the end of this year. So that's where I think we'll take that like deep dive and collaborative stuff, but I think it'll be another evolution for you because now it's another series of events that maybe are a little bit easier to manage because there are only 100, 150 people. Who knows?
Like a SEPA program.
Yeah, more like I guess that's what you were in part doing before we flipped back to the summit, right? You had helped manage and had gone to those SEPA programs, and to your point, those are like 80 to 90 people.
Much easier task.
Yeah, and one room. Yeah, this will be a little bit different, but it'll be. Jocelyn also loves to travel, so this is like a great role for her. And I think some of these summit, the future of taking this collaborative and deep dive style summits to regional communities is cool because we'll get to bop around the country, kind of like times of old, if you will, in the SEPA days.
I think it'll be a nice change for us too. We've been so focused on online stuff post-COVID.
Yes.
I think we've definitely been hearing about the community wanting more in-person events. So I think it'll be nice to change it up a bit and have some
Absolutely.
different areas they can come to.
All right. Well, I have to take a quick break. So toss it back over to me for the logistical side of things. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Thanks.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a CPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it. Hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast. We're on a Flip the Script episode where we're having some very impactful people in my life ask me questions. So I'm going to flip it back over to my guest here, Jocelyn, who is our operations manager here at the Exit Planning Institute. Just finished up talking about the history of the summit. Mm-hmm. So what do you have next on the for your questions?
So I want to segue, I guess, a little bit from the summit, still kind of involved there. Knowing you more on a personal side before I started working here, and kind of knowing your love for giving people experiences and being an entrepreneur. We had Jerry O'Brien this year as our keynote speaker, and his talk all around, buying your because. It's not just a client who comes to buy your product, but they kind of look at the company holistically and say, it's more than just the product that I'm purchasing. So what's the because behind it? And obviously a part of that is what's your why and your purpose, and everything that falls to the behind the scenes kind of play of things. So you have been an entrepreneur for a while now, had your landscaping company when you were 16.
Yep.
And obviously sold that and kind of moved into business with Chris. So what is your why as an entrepreneur? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? Because I'm sure that, you have thoughts for a next plan, but why do you keep doing it? Why not just kind of call it quits and do, your experiences that you love doing?
Yeah, no, that's a really deep question. So on the Flip the Script, that might be one of the more and perhaps impactful questions. So really good question. I think it's, and it brings me down like a total memory lane. I would say during COVID, something that we also kind of did together was rip the old core values off the wall at EPI and rebuild them. And I think a lot of people on this show has heard that story, given that year, 2020, and maybe even 2021 were so impactful for us as an organization, as a leadership team, and I think as individual people. A part of that experience there also allowed me to find my personal purpose, if you will, or kind of discover my because or my why. And it kind of has really blossomed. So I would say I have a more formal answer, and I quite literally have it written down here, and I'll tell maybe that story for people. But I would say if you rewind all the way back to younger Scott, I decided to drop out of college and continue running down the entrepreneur or business owner path, because though I didn't have it like all sketched out back then, I knew things that I wanted to do in my life. And I knew kind of what I wanted to do as I led up to those things. And I just thought it was the quickest, maybe not the easiest, but certainly the quickest way to kind of control my own destiny and achieve the things that ultimately I wanted to try to achieve in my life. And so recently, I came back from a conference, and I went to a session there where they were talking about personal purpose and 10-year visions. and you know me well, I'm not a big 10-year vision guy. There could be tons of stuff that happened in this
Yeah.
10-year thing. I'm more of a 3 to 5 kind of guy. But I do think when you're investigating your personal because or why, looking out 10 years to help you frame it and go to achieve it is meaningful. So a lot of people know at EPI, at least, I carry around this red and black notebook. I have a new one each year, but I always, if I don't have something passionate to write down on the very first page of it, I leave the very first page of it open, and then these are just all my daily tasks and notes from all my meetings like we all have. Mm-hmm. But I leave the first one for something inspirational, usually about life plan or a business plan or where we want to go, so I can always just turn to what was I thinking about when I started that year. So kind of out of the gate in the first quarter, I went to this conference, and they talked about my why, and I thought it really, for the first time at nearly 40 years old now, I was able to frame out what I started when I was a kid at 16. And so more formally, my personal why, what I wrote down is that I own a business, and I do what I do as an entrepreneur or a business owner I wanted to gain enough wealth to be involved in auto racing, which is another passion of mine, and support the businesses or work of some of the people that are closest to me, my leadership team. Mm-hmm. My vision in part is that all of you go out and, frankly, own or buy or run your own businesses when our time at EPI is over. And lastly, to have a foundation that supports key initiatives that are important to me and my family while having time for passions in my life. And so if that were the case, this would be achieved by April of 2034.
Okay.
And I'd be 48 years old. And so, but when when you asked me that question and I have my notebook, it made me think of that, because in my opinion, that's really why I do what I do. That's why I wake up choosing to be an entrepreneur and business owner, because I'm trying to achieve those types of things in my life. And I just believe that this is the pathway to do that. So that's my why, I guess. Yeah, Jerry O'Brien was a great keynote.
He was definitely. He stuck around for a while with us, and
did.
I think he provided a lot of beneficial insight to people. So it was nice to have him around, and
It was.
I think nice to give people a deeper look into that. I know you said, talking back to 2020, that finding kind of your why and your purpose was like a big transition for you. So hopefully
Huge.
People had a similar impact from
Well,
his speech.
I think it drives everything that we do, right? Like, obviously, Jerry came from like a why from a business standpoint, but I agree with you. I think there was a lot of stuff, if you were like really engaged in his keynote speech, that you could apply to your personal life and kind of related to some of the work that we did with Initiative One. But nonetheless, check him out online. Jerry O'Brien. He has a book called "They Buy Your Because." He's the Coors Light guy, right? Yep. He's the guy that turned the mountains blue, if you will, on their cold can and bottle. But Jerry O'Brien.
Awesome. Well, maybe rounding out things here for us and kind of moving into a last topic.
Sure.
We talked about some of your work side of things, some of your personal side of things, and maybe combining the two. We've worked the last couple years to start decentralizing from Chris and from you. I think we're a bit more focused on your side of things now and pushing you more into a visionary spot for the company, and kind of just talking about your why. What in practicing what we preach here, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? What's your exit plan?
What's my exit plan, right? I knew for sure that I'd finally get this question, so thanks for dishing it my way. So I think it's a pivotal point, right? So I would say that Jocelyn and I and our leadership team go on an executive retreat each year, usually down to like Key West, where we quite literally for 4 days we have a lot of fun together, but during the day, we're really reflecting on where we're going, where we've come from, and creating a new vision for 3 years and 1 year. We created a 3-year plan strategy that takes us through 2026, and I think this year we'll revise that to a 5-year plan that takes us till 2028. And so my exit strategy, if you will, right, in the combination of business, personal, financial, will run based on that 2028 strategy. So obviously not a clean 5 years. It would have started last year, but you get what I'm saying, right? A 5-year run from 23, where we first started, to 2028. I think along that run, and you hear a lot of the EOS people talk about leaving room for other passions. I couldn't agree more with Gino Wickman and everybody over there, but it's something similar that we talk about is that if you look at, and I'm in that next generation, right? So not to go down a rabbit hole with generational talk, but people in their 40s and 30s kind of naturally lean into a work-life balance. And that is no doubt me. I think that it's really hard to get a meeting with me here in the summer and fall months because I have my RV that I'm passionate about. Auto racing is going on. My family's got a lake house, and EPI's year is kind of U-shaped, right, where we're like busy in the first quarter, busy in the fourth, so it allows me some extra time. Now, if I didn't have great people like you, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I think the challenge, in part in this exit strategy talk, is to decentralize me, but then to begin to decentralize you so that we're all kind of replenishing our buckets along the way. But for me, there are two things come to mind. One, from a business standpoint, we got to make a 5-year run. 2028 would be a year to potentially consider an exit, perhaps, in some way, shape, or form. What I'd like to think about is, and for all of our SEPAs listening, if you're always ready, then you always have options, right? So I'd like to think along the way we might maybe even do a little bit of exits where our employees buy in or something of that nature. But business-wise, I'm focused on a 5-year run. But at the same time, I'm focused on further removing myself from the business so that I can reinvest into other small businesses, so that I can play in the auto sports world a little bit and maybe carry the torch of awareness of exit planning and those types of things. And then for anybody that has kids, our kids are active, 10, 9, and 7. So I think one of the biggest struggles in being a business owner is having time to go out and do those types of things as well. So I want to remain focused on, am I being a good dad? Am I being a good family person? And then obviously, am I involved enough into my community? But again, I think the name of the game 3 to 5 years is decentralization. So I think that's kind of the loose exit plan, if you will, not the big written version if you looked at it. But that's kind of where we're going, I think, over the next 5.
How often do you find yourself going back to maybe review or revise that? I think a lot of us have learned in the last couple of years that things can change in a year, a month, a day. So when do you find yourself going back to maybe make edits or think through, is this still the right plan for me?
I think it's like a living and breathing thing, right? That's why we're going through the value acceleration methodology, we always say it kind of comes to life and you are. It's not a static plan, right? It's a really diverse and dynamic strategy that lives inside of your business and life. So I think often, I think that, the biggest struggle that I have is this development of what we call the master plan, right? This combination of all three. So if I had, I think that is this true living and breathing thing that we have, because to your point, sometimes it's a business pivot that changes your trajectory. Sometimes it's a personal pivot. I could tell you that I've experienced both in the last 4 years. COVID changed our business and changed our trajectory, and it also changed who I was as a person. And so both of those, now you need to go back to the strategy that you created and say, okay, now how does that all fit in? And once I found my personal purpose, I was able to write this 10-year vision, and now I'm saying, okay, well, if I have 3 kids and I want to be involved in auto sports, but I want to start a foundation where I could donate back to my community in a way that's meaningful to my family, maybe I need more wealth than what I originally thought. And so I just I would say that it's frequent, and it's a living and breathing strategy and document that we have to look at more often than not. And I would challenge our business owners listening that you got to at least do it once a year. And maybe informally you're taking notes like I am on the first page of my notebook that says, okay, I know when I sit down in December to rethink everything, then I have a bunch of things that contribute to this plan. But I think it's like truly living and breathing to who you are, in who you are.
Well, I know you've implemented some more like clarity breaks and things like that coming from EOS.
Another EOS term, man.
But I think that you talk about that a lot, and I think it's been beneficial to make sure that it's not just about having a documented plan, because things can change. And so making sure that you adjust to your life as kind of the days go on.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, life has certainly changed. It's changed for both of us, right? So it's like applying those into your life frequently does affect your exit strategy in some way, shape, or form, right? So, I think that you need time to speed up, to slow down to speed up, and you need to be taking that back into your plan and strategy probably more often than you actually think.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I know that in following some of our core values, you and Chris stay pretty open to us about, business and personal planning for you guys. And so I wanted to make sure that was something that you shared with the EPI community to kind of get everyone on the same page.
Well, thank you. So I think that closes us out. So I want to thank you for coming in and doing it. I don't know if you could see if you're watching. If you're not watching, I go back to the video because she just took a deep sigh. Her and I are going to break, go have a cocktail and a burger at one of our favorite taverns. But I do really appreciate you stepping into the light, the spotlight, if you will, and coming in to our Flip the Script show. So with that, we're back to regularly scheduled programming here on August 14th with my next guest. Please subscribe, listen, and leave a review on all of your podcast platforms. Thank you, Jocelyn. I really appreciate you doing this with us. See you guys next time.